This is Show Up as a Leader, a show from PeopleForward Network, helping you maximize your positive impact on the world by becoming your best, fully authentic self. Hey everyone, it's Rosie. I am really jazzed to be adding my friend Claire Chandler to the lineup of great content on Show Up as a Leader. She is the founder of Talent Boost, and she just does incredible work on advising leaders on how to grow their business with intention, with purpose. And her new series that she's launching on the show is called Growth on Purpose. I've had her on as a guest a few times, cannot wait for her to bring her wisdom, her humor, and all that is Claire into this feed. She is going to be providing you with a framework and practical actions that you can lean on to be intentional with yourself, to be intentional with your teams, intentional with your business, and really building a sustainable ecosystem with your talent so that you're ultimately future-proofing your workplace. Take a listen.
Hey leaders, are you among the 94% of companies that do not have succession plans in place for your key position holders? We're going to solve that problem right here, right now, in this episode. So listen up. Hi there. Welcome back to the Growth on Purpose podcast series, where we are replacing the head junk and self-imposed barriers to the growth of your company and you as a leader, and getting real about how to expand your business without losing your best talent. I'm Claire Chandler. I'm your host. I'm the founder of Talent Boost and leadership therapist to world-class organizations and purpose-driven leaders around the world. If that sounds like you or someone you strive to become, you're in the right place, and this is your much-needed therapy session. So during this episode, I want you to tune out any distractions, block them out, clear your calendar, close your email, turn off your phone, be fully present, and listen in. Throughout this series, we are diving deep into the Growth on Purpose methodology, 4 pillars that, when implemented in the right order, enable you to seed your business with the right talent and nurture that talent so your business can achieve perpetual growth. In the last episode of this podcast, we started to dive into the second of the 4 pillars, which is called awareness. The awareness pillar is designed to help you fulfill the second of the 4 basic needs that all employees have. And the second need is a place to belong. One of the best ways to give the right talent a place to belong is by deciphering the 3 key pieces of their DNA that, when properly activated, will give them a reason to stay longer and contribute more deeply in your business. Those 3 DNA strands are what they are naturally talented at doing, why they feel motivated to use those talents, and how they tend to use those talents. Once you understand the what, the why, and the how within each of your employees, you can adjust their role so that they can spend as much time as possible in their fast lanes. In other words, on activities that come so naturally to them and in ways that fuel what internally motivates them, that they become more engaged and productive. And when you do that on an individual basis, morale increases. When you do that at an organizational level, you increase your profitability and competitive advantage exponentially. That's what this game is all about. Removing artificial barriers to your employees' success and unleashing limitless talent. Now, if this all sounds like a nice to have rather than a mission critical necessity, let me ask you this. How well do you sleep on Sunday night? Do you feel excited about the work that awaits you on Monday morning? Or do you toss and turn with anxiety? And on Monday morning, the closer you get to the office, does your heart pound with enthusiastic anticipation? Or does your stomach churn with dread over what's awaiting you? If that's how you feel, imagine how the majority of your employees must feel. you can only harness the energy you have to work with. Is your company rife with employees who are doing just enough not to get fired? Or is it stocked with talent that eagerly tackles their work because they not only enjoy what they're doing, but how they feel when they're doing it and who they're working alongside? One scenario is a place where people earn a paycheck, but the other is a place where people feel that they belong. One suffers from increasing employee relations issues, customer complaints, safety violations, but the other consistently innovates and outpaces the competition. Now, if you're not sure where your organization lies along that continuum, I want you to take a closer look at your score in the awareness pillar. I'm sure by now you have completed the free 5-minute Growth on Purpose assessment. And if you have, and you have your detailed personalized report in front of you, you are already able to go deeper into your results and into the concrete, tangible actions you can take to start to move the needle in this pillar. Now, if you're listening to this with a blank stare and saying, what is Claire talking about right now? You're really breaking my heart, because it means that you have not yet taken the free 5-minute Growth on Purpose assessment. So please do this for you, not for me. Pause this episode, go to growthonpurpose.com/assessment, spend the 5 minutes it takes to answer several yes or no questions. You will immediately get a 1-page webpage with your results, and magically, through the power of email, you will get a detailed report with your results. If you already have your report, you know what a game changer this is, because that report pinpoints exactly what actions you need to take to level up in all 4 of the pillars. And it will make these episodes where we're breaking down those pillars and this methodology and the tactics and the strategies that much more personalized to your unique business. So make sure you go and get that assessment. And if you've already taken it, grab your report as we proceed through this episode. And because I keep bringing this up and asking people to take the assessment, we've gotten a lot of incredible feedback and input through the assessment. And I wanted to just share a couple of the scores and the insights that we're seeing in this particular pillar called awareness. When I look at the survey respondents and the survey results just over the last 30 days, what's really interesting to me is that while 94% of respondents say that they know who their A players are, only 6% of respondents have a succession plan for key position holders. That astounds me. So you've got 94% of respondents saying, yes, we know who our A players are, and 94% of respondents saying we don't have succession plans for any one of them or any of the critical position holders they might step into. That's a big divide, and that's a big concern. The other thing that I'm noticing in the survey results is only 25% of respondents say that their employees drive their own development or have clearly defined career paths. And I know in working with my own clients that that is one of the biggest findings in their exit interviews when they lose key talent. They're not leaving necessarily because they don't feel like they're being paid a competitive wage. They're leaving because they don't see their place in your organization. They're not seeing a clear path toward their own personal growth and development. They're not seeing a way to stay longer with you, and so they're not staying. These are all things within our control. And it's really no surprise when you think through all of that another finding from the Growth on Purpose assessment is that only 31% of respondents even clearly understand why people stay with their company. We know it's not because of the career paths. We know it's not because they see that they're on a succession plan or they have been tagged as an A player. We know it's not because they have the opportunity to drive their own development in a direction that's meaningful for them. So why are they staying? Only 31% of respondents clearly understand. So we have a lot of work to do. And here's the reality, and I really want you to get your head around this. We already know, we understand, it's obvious that employees no longer stay with the same company for decades. They're really more like subscribers. And so let me explain that. It's amazing to me. You see this on commercials. I see this in my own life. We have subscriptions now for everything, from music and movies and software and meals, and you could subscribe for a car. I happen to currently lease my automobile. And so that's a subscription of sorts. I pay month to month. I pay for satellite radio in that car. I pay for Spotify. I pay for whatever it is. I've just started checking out these meal plans that are all the rage, because I'm tired of coming up with new and imaginative and creative ways to serve my husband chicken. Hello. Anyway, we have subscriptions for everything. And after a while, those subscriptions accumulate. And after a while, we stop being intentional about getting as much value as possible out of each of those subscriptions. And here's what happens when you look at that organizationally. When you realize that your employees are subscribers, when they are making a decision every day that they wake up, whether they are going to continue to commit to your organization, and they demonstrate that commitment not only by showing up, by doing the work, by leaning in, by supporting their coworkers, by trusting their leaders, by contributing to the future forward direction of the company, all those things. They're making that decision on a daily basis. They are deciding every day whether they want to re-up for the service that you provide. And when you get your mind around this notion that employees are essentially subscribers, you as a leader and you all as an organization have a responsibility to treat that service as a value add in their lives. And leaders as well need to get out of the habit of not mindfully managing their subscriptions. Because when they treat employees like a subscription versus as a subscriber, what ends up happening is over time, just like the subscriptions we accumulate and we pay it for month to month without even realizing it, you're still paying for that every single month, whether you decide to get value out of that subscription or not. And so as a leader, when you treat employees like a subscription versus a subscriber, and you don't do what it takes to earn their renewal every day, every week, every month, every year, and you then treat them like a subscription that you forget about, you're paying for them anyway. And so it is really important to understand that this relationship between employer and employee has shifted, and probably we're not going back. Feel pretty secure in telling you that. And so we really do need to be more mindful, more conscious, more intentional about how we treat that subscription, and make sure as leaders and organizations, we are providing as much value as possible so that the employee who is subscribing to us can make a conscious, confident decision to renew that relationship every day. We need to do better. We need to give the right talent a reason to stay. We need to empower them to drive their own development. We need to show them meaningful career paths. We don't necessarily have to tell them that they're on a succession plan, but we need to leave clues that we want to continue to mindfully and intentionally invest in their growth and invest in their progression and invest in their ability to contribute to our grand growth strategy, because that's part of the game too, right? And one of the best ways to forge those career paths is by actively creating succession plans for your key positions. And again, you don't necessarily have to tell the candidates they're on the list, but you do have to create the plan. And then you have to go one step further and actually manage that plan, because you do want to be able to give the right talent a career path that they can sink their teeth into, that they can invest their finite time and energy and effort into achieving. And so I've been doing succession plans for more years than I want to admit. And I've gotten it down to, it's still a bit of an art, but there's quite a bit of science to this. And I want to kind of walk you through just mentally, if you can kind of imagine on one page, the succession plan that you can map out for each of your critical positions and your critical position holders. And one of the things that you have to remember is, first of all, you have to identify which positions those are. You know, I mentioned during the last episode that you tend to overthink and overcomplicate these types of systems and these types of resources and these types of feeders into your overall strategy. And because you're doing that, because you think this is more complicated than it actually is, you put it off until tomorrow. And then you wonder why your talent pipeline is leaking, right? You wonder why when a critical position holder leaves, you don't have somebody ready to go to step into their place, fully acclimated to the role with the right skills and experiences and mindset and motivation to step in seamlessly. And so let's fix that right now. And so if you imagine on one page, or you can take out a sheet of paper, and better yet, if you really want to follow along, email me at claire@talentboost.net, and I will send you this template that I'm going to walk you through mentally, and you can follow along visually. It'll just really kind of make this even more impactful. But anyway, the succession plan template that I use is all on one page. And the first thing you have to do is identify who your critical position holders are. And you can start with individuals. You can start with your A players. You can start with the most revenue impacting roles. However you want to start, just start. And don't wait for your list to be complete. Listen, I'm a list builder too, love lists. I can't get by without a good checklist in my hand at all times. If you wait for perfection, you will never make progress. And so start with one critical position, or one key position holder, or one A player, high flyer, high performer, whatever you want to call it, and just use this template to get started and work through it. And it's simpler again than you are making it out to be. You want to identify in this one-page template both the critical position and who holds it right now, okay? And then you want to make a couple of lists in the top half of this template. One is around the key technical success factors, and the other is around the softer side, the competencies that are also key to success. So these are not your nice to have, these are your mission critical. And the template that I use has a whole bunch of bullets for you to make room and populate. It doesn't have to be that complicated. Even if you came up with 3 to 5 bullets that are key success factors technically, and then 3 to 5 bullets that are key success factors from a competency perspective, from a more soft skill perspective, from a strategic lens perspective. Again, it is more important to get started than to feel like you've finished and have a full 100% complete plan, okay? So it's important to capture those key success factors. Once you sort of map those out, the bottom half of the page is set up so that you can start to identify 1 to 3 potential candidates who could succeed that incumbent in that critical position. And so you want to just name them. And again, don't pressure yourself that you have to come up with 3, and don't pressure yourself that you have to come up with anyone who could be ready today. This is not part of the plan. Come up with one name as a starting point. Where are they now? What's their current role? And then you want to just guesstimate to the best of your ability what their current readiness is. When could they conceivably be ready to step into that critical position? Are they ready now? Because sometimes you will have a successor who's ready to go. Are they ready between 1 and 3 years, 3 to 5 years, 5 to 8 years? I wouldn't go beyond that. I wouldn't put candidates on this plan that are not going to be ready within this decade, right? But identify 1, ideally up to 3 candidates and tag their readiness. And then once you've got that, once you have at least 1 potential successor candidate identified, take a look again at the top half of that page at the success factors that you identified for this particular critical position in the technical category and in the competency category, and evaluate that list of must-haves against what this candidate actually possesses, this successor candidate. And then where there are gaps, in priority order, make that list next to their name. When you do that for at least 1 successor candidate, and ideally up to 3, you then have on one page this at-a-glance view of the state of readiness for you to be able to fill a critical position should the incumbent somehow part ways with the company through whatever means that happens, right? Do not convince yourself that the incumbent in a critical position is going to stay for years and years. Stuff happens. We know that. So it's better to plan for something even if it doesn't occur. And it is also better, even if that role does not become vacant within the time window that you say that this candidate is going to be ready, this still gives you a much more actionable, at-a-glance view of what their gaps might be for that next role. whether it's this role or the next, whether it's an interim role. And once you do that, and once you sort of identify the development gaps, you want to go to the next step of taking action around that. What is one thing that you can do that you can put in front of that successor candidate, whether it is to roll these development gaps into their individual development plan, whether it is to look for a stretch assignment for them to fill a critical gap, whether it is identifying an interim next role. Maybe they're not going to be ready for this critical position for another 5 years. So maybe there's a step within the next 2 to 3, a next role that you could put them in that will not only help them to fill some of these critical gaps for that higher level position, but also keep them engaged and keep them stretched and keep them motivated and keep them challenged. And then finally, at the bottom of this one-page succession plan template, there is a line for your emergency or interim replacement. Back in the day, there was always what happens if your critical position holder gets hit by the beer truck? I don't know why it was a beer truck. I know there are some beer trucks on the road. Now they're more like Tito's vodka. What's up with that? Anyway, I like to use the expression, what happens if your critical position holder wins the lottery tomorrow? The reason that I like to use that scenario is 1, it's far less violent. And 2, that actually happened when I was a head of talent in a corporate job. We actually had a critical position holder in one of our operational sites who won the lottery and literally hired a driver in a limo the following morning and drove to work and resigned. And we were caught flat-footed because we did not have a succession plan for that person. And so it's really important to work through this type of a process that simplifies all the what-ifs, the possibilities, the what-ifs, the scenarios, the who could we get to fill this role and how do we get them ready? And it takes all of that and filters it down to one simple, actionable template. And now here's the thing, as I said, you want to be able to take what you've put down in a one-pager and translate it into action. The worst thing you can do is continue to be like 94% of the companies that have been participating in this growth on purpose assessment and not have a succession plan at all for your critical positions. The second worst thing you can do is put together succession plans for your critical positions and then not do anything with them. You need to get out of this mode of succession planning and actually do succession management. Because I know you. The more that you look at this as a plan, the more you consider this a rainy day contingency that may or may not be necessary. And when you start to think about it as something you have to actually actively manage, the more likely you will see this as a critical component of keeping your business sustainable over the long haul. Again, if you want the template that I just kind of walked through quite quickly, email me at claire@talentboost.net and I'm happy to send it to you and you can populate that and give me your feedback on that. I want to come back to subscriptions for a second though, because this concept keeps staying with me and I think it's really important for you to understand it too. When I coach executive leaders one-on-one, one of the first things we look at is the subscriptions that are on their calendar. And they show up in the form of recurring meetings. And I know you're kind of ducking your head. You're not making eye contact with me right now because you know you are just as guilty of this as anyone else. When you crack open your calendar and you see the sheer number of meetings you have on it, I guarantee you it doesn't fill you with motivation. This is part of why your stomach churns on Sunday night and increasingly churns the closer you get to your office on Monday morning. Because while you may not know everything that awaits you, you know a lot of it is a steady diet of meaningless meetings. And so I want you to be ruthless. And I want you to take a critical look at the recurring meetings that you have subscribed to and forgotten about and are continuing to pay for. Because every time you're in a meeting that actually is not a decision meeting, that is not worthy of your time, you are robbing yourself of time that you could be spending on more important things, such as meeting with your employees, making sure you clarify expectations, and doing the work not only to identify and help them see a clear career path for themselves, but identify what would move them into a fast lane that motivates them and increases their engagement, their productivity, and ultimately the profitability of your organization. And so your homework today, 2 things. If you haven't already taken the free literally 5-minute growth on purpose assessment. Go to growthonpurpose.com/assessment. Make sure you take that and get your score. And then secondly, if you want a copy of that succession plan template, email me at claire@talentboost.net, and I'm happy to send you a copy. Next month, we're going to start to break down the third pillar of the 4-pillar growth on purpose methodology, which is acceleration of trust. Of trust is kind of in parentheses, but it's really sort of important because if you're in an organization that has a trust problem, and when I look at the survey results in the growth on purpose assessment, more than half of employees do not trust their leaders. So there's a really good chance that you are in an organization where trust is an issue. You're going to want to tune into that episode because we're going to start to break down how not to manufacture, i.e. fake trust, but how to nurture it, how to establish it, how to accelerate it, and how to use that to drive deeper engagement and stronger commitment. Until then, thank you for listening. And don't forget to keep going, keep growing, and do it on purpose.
I'm Rosie Ward, and this is Show Up as a Leader. To learn more, head over to PeopleForwardNetwork.com and, of course, hit that follow button.